Good evening. I think most of you know that Wolf Prix was supposed to give a talk here 2 or 3 months ago, and 5 months ago. Oh, already time passes very quickly. 5 months ago, and absolutely, and at the last minute on the day, he had to cancel because his partner Sandrina was giving birth to their child, Sharon, and so we didn't get to hear this talk, and I'm glad that now the whole family are here today en masse, and that Wolf is able to give his talk. One of the hardest things, I think, for any architect is to really stay true to the initial idea of any project. I think many people start with wonderful ideas, the first sketch, and somehow in the process of developing that first sketch, because of the circumstances of the project, whether it's the client, whether it's the financial situation, that particular project transforms and becomes something else. And one of the things that I think is quite significant about the work of Wolf Prix and Coop Hohenblau is the fact that they have consistently been able to really stay true somehow to this original idea. This is something that's quite evident in many of their sketches and the transformation. But in a way also this idea of the traces of the sketch nevertheless bring together a kind of form, something that by definition is fixed to a certain degree. Tonight, on the other hand, Wolf is going to talk on what he calls between heaven and hell, the architecture of clouds. And here it seems that he will be dealing with something which is not fixed, something which is much more mobile, transforming, fluid, certain aspects of urbanism in a way which resist this kind of fixity of architecture. But I was also reading up on my Wittgenstein the other day, and Wittgenstein says that is cloudy that which conceals forms because it obliterates light and shadow. This is obviously the kind of dichotomy between the issue of fixity and that of cloud as something that is mobile, but at the same time as something that creates cloudy conditions. And I'm sure that Wolf Prix is going to enlighten us on this topic tonight. Would you join me in welcoming Wolf Prix?
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here again after 20 years, I think. I have to retitle the lecture anyway. I'm not talking about clouds. I'm talking about what I would like to call between heaven and hell, which is actually the position of architecture nowadays. I have the feeling that the home base of architecture is a black hole somewhere in the universe, which means a lot of gravity but no ground. And before I start, I would like to clarify some paradigms because they are special Viennese paradigms, something for Charlie, because the first paradigm is I don't look like Mies van der Rohe. I'd rather look like Corbusier. Can I remove my jacket? The first paradigm is suppression. Himmelblau is a Viennese team. My friend and partner Helmut Swieczynski, we founded it 30 years ago, in May '68, and we are, of course, very connected to the psychoanalytic theories of Sigmund Freud. So suppression, and this is very important if you consider how architecture is done in a more and more conservative world. Suppression is a tool to avoid big pressure. That means if the pressure, the circumstance pressure gets too high, people have, in order to survive, have to suppress them and start to love them. That means the pressure which tries to smash you is an object of love. This is one. The other thing is obedience. Authoritarian societies or dictatorships, they don't like or they can't bear contradiction. Our world is, of course, a very complex one, in which contradiction is the most important argument to get along. So, how can we explain the movement of getting more and more simple? First of all, it could be a way to avoid pressure and suppress and start to love what people don't like. The other thing is being obedient to investors and developer makes your life very easy. In the society nowadays could be explained as turbo capitalism, and on the superficial explanation could be simplify to the max. Architects try to delegate their decision to analysis, to calculation, and that this couldn't be or shouldn't be the only way to make architecture shows a very good example, namely the moon of Mars, Phoebus. Can I have the first slides? Scientists, if we would follow the scientists, the calculation of the scientists, this moon couldn't exist because it rotates against all calculation around the Mars in the wrong direction and around the wrong way around its own axis. Next. 6,000 years ago, mankind decided which way they want to go. There was the change from the matriarchalic society into the patriarchalic society. It's funny, if I read the description, if people describe our projects, they use mostly the word chaotic, crazy, disquieting, without rules, no order. And I would like to explain this attitude by using the contradiction to these words, namely codes and rules, law and order. Next. This is an example for law and order of the left side and a chaotic liveliness on the right side. Next. Jan Retzmer, a German writer, writes in his book about the strategies of Muhammad Ali that a man who is going to an airport finds the right plane at the right time, and the plane brings him to the right place he wanted to go. He is a scientific guy compared to a nomad who is finding the track, tries to find the track in the desert along the stars. That means that our society is a much more complex one than the nomad society. The information you get is getting more and more explosive. The memory, like you can read it on the airport, is going bodiless more and more. Next. You're just following codes and rules. Interesting research work from MIT said that something about reception. They proved that the digitized images don't go to your long-term memory. Digitized images only stay in your short-term memory. That means that the analog pictures are much stronger because they endure much longer than the digitized images. Next. A chicken can only survive if it could read whether this is a goose flying over his head or a falcon. But a chicken doesn't need to have the full lively bird in order to know what it is. A chicken reads the abstraction, if I would be friendly. I would say it could read the abstraction in the form of the cross as well. On the left side, no danger. On the right side, flee, run away. That means, if I would be polemic, that means if you simplify problems too much, maybe you share the point of a view of a chicken. Next. The Tower of Babel. There's a lot of strategies how we can make architecture nowadays. We prefer the strategy of finishing the Tower of Babel. You know, a long time ago, God forbid the people to finish the tower because it was too proud. He confused the language of the builders. I think we should go back to the roots, by confusing the language again and finish this tower. We tried to make a detail because we started only 30 years ago, and the detail was a cloud. Next, in 68, next please. In 68. Actually, this was the first image I showed, I think 30 years ago in this school. I had photographs running around showing everyone this inflatable structure, being very proud that we finally changed architecture. And actually, this was an error, of course. The cloud was an inflatable pneumatic volume where it was inflated from a tube, from a box, and in this volume, movable platform changed according to the movement of the people or according to the emotion of the people. This is actually a prototype of architecture we kept very long, and it turned out that we used this prototype box versus inflatable structure. Not literally inflatable, but free structure by building the latest UFA center, cinema center in Dresden. Next. Clouds as a synonym of changing condition were always in our mind, still is in our mind, and the name sky blue refers to clouds because it is a program, it's not a color. We said Himmelblau, sky blue is not a color, but it's the idea and concept of an architecture buoyant like clouds. Next. Yeah, I said it before that we try to change architecture, of course. But you can't change architecture by changing material or structure or strategies. We thought we should go real to the point where we can really change it, crossing the borderline, pushing the envelope. This is, of course, the moment of designing. By introducing other methods of designing than architectural methods, like artistic methods, automatic drawings and so forth, mathematic methods, educational and sociological ideas. We thought that we can liberate the ground plan, and the drawings we did, This was 15 years ago. We started to do where it couldn't be read as architectural drawing, of course, but rather than a psychogram of an upcoming space. And liberating the ground plan means for us reading these drawings in many directions, reading as a ground plan, of course, but as a section at the same time. Next. And sometimes we prove that it could be built. This is a project for the open house, which we could never realize. But it's the same strategy, typology of architecture. Again, a box or a dissolved box and a volume which is not programmed. Next. Or not so defined. I think it's not only the changing the method of designing, but also developing strategies to get through with these ideas until the real thing, which was always in our mind when we started Himmelblau. The real thing means we always wanted to go in our heads. We want to experience our ideas by moving into our ideas with our body. Means building. And you have to develop a lot of tricky strategies in order to avoid, firstly, the circumstantial pressure, the politics, or better, to bend it in the direction you want to bring them. So that means that the circumstantial pressure or the codes, rules, politics, they don't guide us, they don't lead us, they don't bend us. In opposite, we try to use the force in order to get through with our ideas. For example, this is the rooftop designed 84. At this time, it was not allowed to change a roof in Vienna in this direction in any case. Means you are not allowed to change materials, the roof pitch, and so forth. We presented this model our mayor and asked them whether he can read it as architecture, and he said, of course, it's not. It's rather a sculpture. It's rather art. And so we proved that art is not under the code, building codes of Vienna. And so next. And this is how it looks like. Next. From the outside and from the inside. It can be done. Next. Or the other thing is how we deal with building permits. This is a building we designed in 75. And if you look close, you could see this flame-shaped roof. We couldn't build this. It was too economic at this time, and so forth and so forth. But what we did, we did this blazing, this burning wing. And you have to imagine that we got a building permit to ignite this object in the middle of a city, in the middle of a courtyard. I think this is the first building permit for a burning architecture. Next. Or a recent example. By reducing the floor heights of this high-rise, mid-rise, 60 meters high, by slanting it, by digging it a little bit more into the earth, landscaping, using the landscape, we gained 15% more volume in this building. That means we got the money to build the glass facade, which is actually a climate facade. It's another lecture. But what I would like to say is by using all the engineering, the politics, and the designing facilities, we get money to create what we really wanted to do. We want to have a glass facade on a social housing project, which is normally impossible. Next. So all strategies together came up in the most uncompromising project we ever did. This was the museum, the part of a museum in Groningen. Because we got a commission to do the East Pavilion for Mendini's museum. We had a tough budget, we have a tough time limit, but we could do whatever we wanted to do, so the client said. So we didn't care about having a museum or a Kunsthalle or things. We wanted to prove what we can what we can build. So we started with a sketch we called liquid space. Next. In the next step, of course, we considered a little bit the condition inside a museum by proving or by researching the daylight and the artificial light, and out came a model. Next. This model. And on top of this model, we emphasized the first sketch of the liquid space, and this was the sketch model. It was the sketch idea for the real model. Next, which occurred to us very lively with all the mistakes, and we thought, okay, this is the thing we wanted to build. With all the mistakes, with all the non-functional things. And actually, we started to do it, and we did it. First, we took this model to Los Angeles. Next, where we digitized the model into the X, Y, and Z frame, so we could be very precise on every point in the three-dimensional grid. Next. And then we figured out that we used the shipyard in order to build this video foley in Groningen. So we tried to build, or we proposed that we build the museum in the shipyard like we did this small piece again. Two advantages. They were very fast and very cheap because they had no work. Next. So we could keep the budget. Next. So the steel, the steel was done like a thermoship, the walls like a thermoship in the shipyard next to the, I like that. Hello? Go Bimmelblau. Could you hold a minute? And then you would hear the Rolling Stones, Give Me Shelter, you know? If you tried it. We did, so we did the part of this museum, the Kunsthalle or museum, we did it like a ship in the shipyard. Next. Last time I said Corbusier promised it, Himmelblau did it, and students were very upset because how could we compare us? I didn't compare us with Corbusier, I just compared the method, yeah? And this is how it looks like. Next. Yeah, this is the part we did, and the other part is Mendini's work. Actually, it's a bridge building between the old and the new city, and the red inside the Miss van der Rohe building, no confusion, is the size of our Kunsthalle or East Pavilion. Next. Just to give you a tip. Yeah, but to look at art is another thing. Yeah, this is, we watched Kiefer, how he is looking at his paintings. He's never looking at his painting in a straightforward way. He's lying down, he's on a ladder looking down, he's having the images, the paintings on the ceiling, lying on the floor, looking from this way. So several point of views, and this was the topic of the idea. And you can see that a lot of stairs and ramps are spiraling up over the roof, coming back to the pavilion again, touching the water, and sometimes stairs leading to nowhere. Next. This is actually the ground plan and the sections through the building. Next. And this is how it looks like. You can see that there's a lot of stairs and a ramp crossing the main hall. And I have to be honest, the curators were very unhappy when it was finished, because curators are mainly very conservative, and they can't deal with architecture like this. They need a neutral box because it's easy to celebrate an artist in a graveyard like a neutral box, and it's the 19th century, so they are used to it. But if it looks like this, it's like an organ. You have to play. You have to get used to it. You have to play it on many manuals. So now they are ready to do it, and the next year we will do an exhibition to show them how it really could be. Next. Yeah, and this is, for instance, the stair leading to nowhere, except there is a point where you can look up and see a Richard Long sculpture from beneath. You never will see it anywhere else, only in the Groningen Museum. Next. And this is actually the real concept of this part of the museum, of the pavilion. It's the unusable space. So we did a museum where architecture exposes itself, because these spaces are not usable. There are no doors to go in, and they can't use it. Next. Maybe we could call it voids. And if you look at this is the graphic cabinet where Rembrandt, very beautiful. Actually, the real reason why artists don't like architecture like this is that they're really afraid of the confrontation. Because that's true. If a piece, an art piece, is weak, this architecture is very cruel with this art piece. It shows that this piece is weak. But if the piece is strong, both architecture and the space and the art piece get stronger together, like synthesis. This is synthesis. This is an exhibition wall. Okay, and you can read this pattern. Next. Charlie, this is not a fractal pattern. It's just the enlargement of the original pencil drawing. It comes up 200 times. If you enlarge your pencil drawing 200 times, it looks like this. And we did it on the metal in full attention, because we call it the power of the drawing. This metal will rust. This color is a tar, is a kind of special color. It's like tar. It will never rust. Next. If you look close, you can see the chuck close and the pencil drawing of the first sketch. So tar will never rust. The steel walls, they will rust. So that means, and that is the theoretical concept behind, it means after 100 years, the pavilion will be gone. Next. Only the drawing will remain. Can we change the carousel? One year ago, we got the commission, or 2 years ago, we got the commission to build the cinema center, the UFA Cinema Center in Dresden. 1 year planning time, 1 year building time. Now it's finished. And therefore, the main part of this lecture is concerned with this project. It came from a not winning entry of a competition. We did this competition because only 5 people were invited, and we got money paid. So we thought, okay, at least we will win the 3rd prize, and the paid money could cover our expenses, so we can do that. We did it, and then we got the phone call, okay, I'm sorry to tell you there was a mistake in the jury. You only got the 2nd prize. I said, very good, more than we expected. And then the next day, someone called me and said, okay, this is the director of UFA. I want you to build the cinema. you didn't win the whole project, but we want you to build the cinema. See, sometimes a non-winning entry will be built. The proposal was to exchange the axial tradition of Prague into a tangent system where vectors and tangent come together, creating the spot of a new cinema, which could be, you will see later, the point of departure for a new city planning development. Next. We had to study it very closely because there is a cinema already, and the second one, the new one, contains the same kind of amount of seats. So there were the best time, or the worst time, about 6,000 people around this area. So we had to create liquid spaces which define the space but don't block it. Next. These are the first studies how we can do that and how the cinema could look like. Within this triangle side, we placed the cinemas in a real strange way, but next, it turned out that the city will not go with this, and the client will not go with this extreme, highly costly project. So we had to redefine the whole system, but we stayed with the image of, or the concept, the media concept, namely that the part of this cinema is not only a cinema, but also a public space, and the media which is projected inside the movie could partly be seen outside as well. Next. This is the city planning study where we defined the cinema as a point of departure, defining the building which defines the space, but it will not block the whole area. Next, because too many people are around. After 1 year political engineering and engineering the client, we had the new project on the table, and this is what we were going to build. Next. This is the situation of the cinema. This is the Elbe. I don't know whether, it's a beautiful city, destroyed sometimes. Some places are heavily destroyed, rebuilt in the 50s, very modernistic, communistic Plattenbau. And this is the railway station, this is the old center, and the triangle is the situation of the new cinema. So this is it's a very important, heavy strategic point for the new development of Dresden. Next. Firstly, because the cinema is in the city and not outside. So it's in the core of the city, proposing that the city is not a monofunctional shopping area, but also, let's say, a cultural area. Again, regaining public space was one of the main issues. This is the project. This is the old cinema. This is the newly built shopping centers, which we didn't win. And this is the concept. The slab here is very, not transparent, but you can read, that people can walk through. And therefore, we proposed that the lobby of the cinema is not only a lobby where you can buy the tickets, but also a passage from one very important shopping area to the upcoming very important area, the Petersburger Straße, Prager Straße, Petersburger Straße. Very modernistic, a little bit like RAM. Next. This is the concept in the big slab, and very, very many people are walking, pedestrian zone to the other area, and the building therefore shouldn't block this area, defining this street, this boulevard. Later on it will be a boulevard, but it should be durchlässig as well. You should be able to walk through this building as well. Next. The other thing was compare a very economic cinema with 8 cinemas would look to a very loose composition like we did. So we had to prove, in order to make it transparent, let's say transparent, that you are able to go through, we had to cantilever the main part of the building. How could we convince a client who wants to have a block, actually, because it seemed to be very economic, it seemed to be very fast, how could we convince them? We just calculated that the buyable site is much smaller if we cantilever than if it would be a block. That means he saves money which he could easily spend in cantilevering, because cantilevering is cheaper and the air rights are cheaper than buying the whole site like this. So two points of decision at one time. We wanted to cantilever a building because I think cantilevering is one of the next step in architecture, twisting and cantilevering. So cantilevering, yeah, you know, twisting and and the other thing was that we wanted to reduce this, of course, this block has to be in concrete because of sound installation and a lot of other things. But the lobby was created in a very free space. The lobby, which is not only the lobby for the cinema, but also a passage and a balcony for the city, a public space. Next. So we decided that we do the entrances to the cinema upstairs, and one is leading to the subterranean cinemas downstairs. So the ±0 level is free for moving, and the material of the public space will go through the whole building. To differentiate this volume, we used structures which we are experimenting with structure which we call frozen air, which are actually an imagination next of the picture that architecture is a cutout of frozen air. Can I have the next? Cantilevering. This is to prove that the building actually, this is a building which is wider on top than on the bottom. So it goes up. It's the reversed pyramid. And it's actually, this solution was cheaper for the client than a block, than a concrete block would have been by buying the whole area. Next. Celebrating, you know, the entrance to the cinemas, referring to Metropolis, shows the study model of this lobby, where you can read the passage through the building and the staircase leading to the entrance to the cinema. Next. And this is how the plans are reading. This is the block where the 8 cinemas are placed, 4 upstairs and 4 downstairs. The cinemas are very economically built. They're just boxes, from 500 to 150 people audience. That means they start a big movie in the big cinema, and the audience gets the little the cinema will be. They were placed here in order to keep the concrete block as thin as possible. We placed the exit and the emergency outside this block and placed another facade in front of the staircases. That means dissolving one facade and creating another space. Next. I like this drawing because they are working drawings. I like it more than all my hand drawings because it's the moment where you can read, you can sniff that reality, that your fantasy becomes reality. Next. Going through this whole stuff, this is how the cinemas are placed, very straightforward economic boxes with a high level of sound. You have to know that the companies who lease the movies, they're checking out the sound system of the cinemas, and if you don't get the 3 points exactly the sound quality they need, you will never, the owner wouldn't be able to show Star Wars, for instance. Next. It's extremely loud if you're there. It's like in a disco. Going up, next. And this other section where you can see where the cantilevering starts here, and this is going up, technical space. There are the 4 cinemas, and these are the smaller cinemas in the basement. One cinema could be changed into a theater, which is also a gesture to the city, that it's not only a commercial but also a little bit a cultural spot. Next. The working drawings of the steel frames. Next. And the running of the forces through the concrete slab on the back side of the building. Next. Referring, of course, to our role model Piranesi. You know, long time ago, when people ask us what role model do you have in architecture, we said Keith Richards. But time is over now. I have to confess that Piranesi, Kiesler, and Corbusier, not Mies van der Rohe, are role models, of course. This is the first sketch where I could explain that we are dreaming sometimes of a space, a frozen air, where you cut out your architecture you are doing. It could be compared to the quote of a very famous Viennese pianist. He said, while I'm playing Beethoven's Moonshine Serenade, I can see milk dropping over glass. And dissolving the monocentric or Zentralperspektive. What's that in English? Zentralperspektive. Charlie, do you know what's? Yeah, thank you. So by destroying it, I lost the English term. Next. This is the study model of the lobby. The study model of the space-defining sculptures, which are not sculptures at all, because this is an elevator shaft, and this is the so-called media tower we used for structural, for getting the forces down. It's very similar to this sculpture, the design for the Kansai Khan library, where we used the negative space in order to create the Museum of Knowledge in front of the library. Next. Playing around with media and dissolving the facade from the building. An example is the Venice Pavilion. Next, the Austrian Pavilion in Venice. Next, where we place the facade right in the front of an existing building, which we actually don't like. It's the Hoffmann Pavilion, done in 1936. It's a pre-fascistic building. So we added another facade and another fifth facade, the roof. Next, this is we created a kind of free space, or this facade on the office building in Austria, which is the facade is placed in front of the building, serving the control of light and climate, and people use that free space as free space, actually. Next. Or this project we have on the table right now, where this space becomes, this facade becomes a whole building. 4 tanks remodeled into apartment buildings and multifunctional apartment buildings, a new city center with retail, rock concert halls. And this is our part. Next. Jean Nouvel is doing one. So you can see that we dissolve the facade from the building again, but this now the facade becomes a whole building itself. Next. Yeah, back to the UFA cinema. The control of light and the light concept was very important. Not only the media concept, the light concept. We designed together with the light designer of Peter Sellers, very famous stage designer, light designer, a light which is different in the summertime and in the wintertime. It comes from different points. Sometimes in the wintertime, warm light will come from above. In the summertime, cold light will come from below. Next. Yeah, to build things like this, getting very exciting on one hand, very, very exhausting on the other. Next. And to have a building site is very exciting. This is, for example, the elevator shaft. This is the entrance. Yeah, these are the space sculptures defining the space but not blocking it. Next. This is two towers and three floating objects. The one floating object, this is this double cone, so-called sky bar. We wish, our wish was that we would have a champagne bar in this double cone. Next. It's created by cables, and like this object we did together with Kiki Smith in the Museum of Modern Art in Los Angeles. Reversing the universe, paradise cage, it's called, because Kiki made a lot of stars and designs of stars, and they put it on the floor, and by going up this stair, looking down in this double cone, it's the point of view of a god, because you look down on the universe. Next. Or this stage set we did for Oedipus Rex. Peter Sellers was the director. Next. So the double cone is coming up. It will be bigger and bigger, and sometimes it will be a building. This is these are the first shots of the preview. We had to start the cinemas very early because the client needs money, of course. So you can see the whole area was not finished, but the cinemas are working. Next. The public space is still not finished, and the official opening will be at the 2nd of July. This is what we call liquid space. Yeah, buildings which define the urban structure, but doesn't block it. Next. And this is the surrounding of this area. I told you it's modernistic, communistic, prefab buildings. Next. And this is the concept of, I'll show you some slides I just got the other day. I see the first time by myself right now. You can see it's not finished. It will be finished, but the material of the concrete material will go through the whole building. You can see where it starts to cantilever, and so the building is much bigger on top than on the floor. Next. These are the exits of the cinemas. These are the dissolved facade. This is even the glass volume cantilevers. This is the big entry to which could be opened in the summertime. This whole facade could be opened. In the summertime you can walk through, go through to the other street as well. And the main entrance is right here, so you can crisscross the whole building. Next. These are some shots I did by myself at the preview. This is the inside. Yeah, these are the two towers, the elevator tower and the media tower. Bridges are crossing the volumes leading to the cinemas, and this is the other object, the other floating object. Next. The material is concrete and zinc, so we didn't beautify the building. The client is very unhappy right now, but after a lot of good crits, he starts to get used to it. You know, this volume is not air conditioned. This is kind of part of the city. It's not a cinema. It's still the balcony to the city. People can use it without going to the movie. The zinc rails sometimes are replaced by glass. So there is there's a certain point from the entrance where you can see all through the building. Next. Some details is going up to the cinemas 4 and 6. This is the one. This is the entry to the concrete block in the wintertime. Next, this is the bottom of the double cone, glass, steel, and concrete. Actually, next, this is the view I like the best. You can read, it's not the Swiss concrete. It's raw like concrete should be. It's more lively. It's not licked like chocolate. It's raw, like the zinc rails. Next. The other part of the other side of the cinema looks like this: metal grid facade. And the funny thing is that sometimes you can look through. Sometimes it blocks the view. It depends on the light. Depends on the sun. Sometimes it looks like liquid glass. Next. Yeah, you can read it like this: transparent and frozen. Next. This is the one part of the passage. This is not the main street. It's the Petersburger Straße. Going through this building would be kind of open up the whole area. Next. The cantilevering part. Each ton has about 1,000, holds up 1,000 cars, 1,000 tons. I like to bring this example because, you know, this is concrete. Steel and concrete are still very, very powerful materials. This is the entrance to the theater downstairs, and the guiding system similar to the guiding system in an airport. Next. Some details. This is another floating and space differentiating object, the triangle, which will be used later on as a projection wall for trailers for the movies. Next. This is the view from the entrance, the floating triangle, and the double cone. Next. The double cone, and you can go up like to mountains, going up and crossing the areas. It's like climbing a mountain and crossing a canyon. Actually, it serves a lot. These sculptures, let's say it this way, it serves a lot of other things as well. Since we have no, the elevator is too small to bring all these people up. People have to walk a lot. And you have to, by breaking the perspective, and every second you have another view, it reminds people on a video clip where you can see every second another picture. Next. The building itself changes during the day because of light. This is we are going now to the evening time. It's becoming more differentiated. Next, you can see next please. You can see inside, and in the night the crystal starts to glow, and the backside awakes with light, and there will be projections and advertising on this side as well. Next. And I have to admit, when we saw this building finished and lit like this, we were really proud that we could do it in the time the client asked us to do it, and we could keep the budget. Next. So we are very optimistic that we can do this project as well. It's 3 times the cinema center. It's a theater with 3 high-rises around. It's a winning entry in Hamburg. Next. Some details. Next. And this is, it will look like, hopefully. But there are 3 or 4 more years to go. And I have to remind ourselves that we have to take a lot of risk in order to get through with this all. Ram is telling the story, and is comparing the architects with hostages with a pistol on the head. They have to answer the question, how are you doing? Very well. Ram is telling the story. I like the story, but I like the story of Cimino much better. In the movie Deer Hunter, 2 friends were caught by the Viet Cong, American soldiers, and they had to play Russian roulette against each other. The 2 friends were Christopher Walken and Robert De Niro. While playing, you know, Russian roulette, 1 bullet, 5 chances, 4 chances, 1 is a deadly one. And while they were playing, Robert De Niro looked at the guards and asked for more bullets. He raised the risk. And then he got 3 bullets. He tried it, click, it was fine. And then he shot with the 3 bullets, the 3 guards, and escaped. That means, if you want to keep architecture, you have to triple your risk. Thank you very much. Communistic prefab
to the modernistic, capitalistic, drop the prefab.
Yeah, right.
I think maybe we had a lot of things in the events list about what you were going to say about urbanism and the relationship between the clouds and things that were, in a sense, fluid and transforming. And I know that you didn't want to do that tonight, but I think in the context of what you presented, especially with the cinema project, and the fact that there are certain aspects of the interior that are still part of the city, they're in this kind of in-between zone of the city and the cinema. It would be quite good if you could maybe say a few words. How does this project now really also situate itself in the kind of context of urbanism that had been somehow suggested or insinuated in the events list, to do with clouds, or to do with things that are in a way kind of not so fixed?
Yeah, I think we always do the same mistake if we are dreaming the dream of the mighty architect. I still think that architecture cannot improve the situation of a city, cannot improve the ability or the capacity of people using the architecture, but it could, or it will, architecture will, of course, block a lot of, if you do it wrong, block a lot of possibilities. So our chance is that we could operate on the matrix of possibilities of multiple choice. The cinema center right now, it's open. People love it and people hate it. But people use it. At the opening, at the preview, there were 25,000 people walking around, and they're still walking around. And it seemed that, yeah, but yes, some are starving there, and some are lost. Some are, on the peak of the mountains. It will be, hopefully, a departure point of development. This enormous big slab has on the ground floor pilotis, like, a modern movement always had it. And within this pilotis there are a lot of devasted, desolated shops right now. I heard that now the shops are turning into coffee shops and restaurants, and some are moving in order to create a passage from, to emphasize this passage attitude of the building. This could be, this is one of the...
It's time to change this thing.
Is it still the same?
It's the same one.
Yeah, I remember when I was here 15 years ago. I was really confused when I was there because projection power and screen. Oh, that works. It didn't work then. No, okay. Cinema.
So, are there any questions for?
Since it's very hot. 3 weeks ago, or 1 month ago, I visited Oskar Niemeyer with my students. It's a fabulous experience. Yeah, it's this beautiful, beautiful studio overlooking the Copacabana, empty. Only an easel was there, and he came in, asked, "What do you want to know?" And we asked our questions, and he was drawing 6 drawings. I got 6 drawings now. Then he turned around, looked at the students, and said, "Why are you here? Why are you not on the beach? Why don't you have wine? Why don't you have good time?" I tell you what, nada importante. Thank you very much.